you hire an influencer, they start running on a campaign, and then they get involved in something, you know, some drama. Some brands decide to actually just really end the engagement there and then. Some brands act like they don't know what's going on, you know, they don't see what's happening. And this is really, to me, this is actually quite a big thing, you know. So what do you guys think? Do you think influencers should be held accountable? I think since we're talking about management and all, where they need to be coached and told what to do as well sometimes, what do you guys really think? Do you think we should even go to a point where influencers are even maybe blacklisted? You know, I know I'm pushing it a little bit too far, but what are your thoughts on that?
So I suppose that's one of the caveats of working with influencers, right? There's these aspects of the fact that they're an individual, they have their passions, they have their interests, they have potentially controversial positions on certain things, and you want to make sure that when you're engaging with them, you know, these are risk areas, these are things that could go sideways. So how do you deal with it? I think if you're going to do an engagement with them, definitely there could be some form of code of conduct, perhaps, because again, if you think about, let's say, a brand like Safaricom or Standard Chartered, they subscribe to certain values as a brand. And even as they engage influencers, there needs to be a good fit so that there's a sense of, okay, these are guys, we look at their track record, you see how they're engaging. We generally feel they're going to be a good fit. We don't expect any controversy. But I mean, even in other mainstream marketing activities where somebody becomes a brand ambassador, you can remember probably the time when Nike was sponsoring Tiger Woods and he had some scandalous things happen. They kind of held back on his engagement, but also they came back stronger as a partner, showing that they were really aligned between the two brands. But I think it's critical to remember that, you know, that is always going to be a risk area. And I think it's really important to kind of understand whether the influencer is risky, just looking at their past performance, and understand whether your brand will be at risk from that perspective. But also, I think there's opportunities where a brand should also recognize that that risk does exist, and sometimes an influencer might not always be sitting on the right side of political or, you know, opinions around certain issues. And that may be sometimes, depending on the nature of the controversy, could be forgivable. But also, again, yeah, I think with the research and, you know, maybe using platforms like Nelson's, you know, being able to sort of measure sentiment and understand, you know, outside the brand engagement, how does this influencer generally engage, and are they really aligned or fitting well with what our brand is all about? So I think some homework or some pre-engagement analysis or due diligence is necessary to make sure that, you know, you're not putting your brand at risk from that perspective.
This is a passion point for me. Just because a lot of brands go with, we want to do something big, we want to cut through, so we're just going to go and get an influencer. And what Moses said actually resonated, which says you have the risk-benefit analysis, where if you're going for this big pop star or sports personality who's going to give you immediate cut through, but the next day is going to like punch a prostitute in the street, then you have to ask yourself, you know, was the benefit of having the cut through worth it for kind of the raised level of awareness that we've had? That's number one. Number two, going back to something that Joy said, is remember that every influencer or content creator is a business. It's actually a business. So like any other business, if I was getting a caterer, if I was getting an event planner, if I was getting whoever, there's a contract. And in that contract, you have to be careful to actually spell out the clauses for termination of contract, where you say if this and this, if you are accused of a felony, if you're accused of, or if you are convicted, because that's another angle, you can be accused and then found innocent. But if you're convicted of whatever, or if there's any legal whatever, you give us room to step back and you give us back our money. So having that contract in place is definitely key. And the reason why brands are using influencers is you can say things in the way that we can't. You know, if a bank or whatever started going, yo, we're so cool, we're so whatever, the public is not stupid. They'll be like, that's not your voice. So that's why I go out for an influencer. That's why I go out for a content creator, so that I can use their authentic voice. So back to, I think what Moses was saying was, you need to go back and you need to do your due diligence. That authentic voice, are you willing to have it talk about you, you know? And then you make the decision.
When it comes to your reputation as a content creator or an influencer, And in this line of business, it's basically everything. So, we've always advocated for the practice of, integrity and ethics in everything that we do, to the extent where we've had quarterly retreats where we invite industry experts to come and talk to the influencers just to see how they can go around these things and actually, become part of the emerging value chains and capitalize on that. Should influencers be held accountable? Definitely, because, they come in as, an individual. So the agency is there to manage them and represent them. Where we've come in is also set out specific strategies and, all our agreements and contracts with them actually bind them. And in that, they're supposed to act a certain way and behave a certain way, because they're now not just, they can't be a Twitter keyboard warrior. They have to watch what they say. There's a way, there's certain way they have to carry themselves, to touch on what Moses said. There's the values that these brands have. So, even when the influencers are being picked, I think even with Nelson's platform, you can match the right influencer to the kind of brand they want to work with. So when this is determined, a lot of trust has been put to an influencer, to be a part of a campaign. So, it's the professional responsibility for them to actually perform as expected. We have the integrity, have the ethics, and I think management also comes in to make sure that that's aligned. And when there's a situation with a client, then I think it's both on the agency and on the influencer as well. What exact situation was the influencer involved in, and how is the agency actually working around this to actually, come out, get a good story to come out of it. So it's both of them, and I think both should be held accountable.
I think from a business perspective, it's fair. I mean, the client or the company, they have their right to not want to be affiliated with you anymore, if that's the case. My biggest thing is I'm not a fan of blacklisting, just unless, it depends on what the offense is. There's a lot of stuff that's very forgivable. So I'm not a fan of blacklisting, but I do think that people do need to be held accountable, because you do need to realize that once you become a content creator and you are representing brands, you're no longer yourself. If you just can't say or do whatever you want to do, or whatever you used to do, you kind of still need to be very responsible. So usually for me, my rule is just to avoid such stuff. A lot of things that usually tend to ruin your reputation are always very private things. So I'm just a firm believer in just, keep your private life your business, and nobody cares about it if you never talk about it. So usually my content, I try to focus everything just on me. I never show my relationships, family, things like that. And it's worked out so far.
Yeah, I think for me, at the risk of being a little bit controversial, I think for me, this brands stand for what people believe in, right? And the flexibility of what an influencer does and represents is dependent on who their target audience is and who they're trying to connect with. So, I mean, integrity and ethics are extremely important, but it doesn't mean you have to be boring and stuck up. I mean, there are brands like, a bank or like Safaricom is a family brand, so there's definitely values and a way that brand express, but it doesn't mean that you as an influencer, if you have a playful character, if you for you authentically is a bit risque or a bit out there. I think it's about how do you align yourself to brands. Like a good example is Virgin. Virgin as a brand is playful, it's a bit out there. Richard Branson is a bit crazy. So those are the things. I mean, I just think that there's a risk of sending the message that because we are talking about ethics and integrity, then everybody has to be kind of fit in this mold, which is not the case. I think it's about really understanding what the brand stands for, and then and brand here is you as a brand, as an influencer, but also who your target brand is, whether it's Safaricom or whoever, and then seeing if there's a fit. And there are some brands, if there's a brand where you actually say, actually because of what my brand stands for as an influencer, I don't want to do work with Safaricom because those guys are gonna kill my vibe, and that's okay. So I think that balance is there, and it's important to because I think for me in this space of content creation, the magic is in the authenticity, and that's what you need to keep true. You need to be true to who you are because that's what people will connect to. So I think the Nike example is a good one where ultimately, if your brand stands for resilience or being human, then that's a really good justification to say, even after Tiger Woods went through what he went through, as a brand we stand by him, and because we're human, and those are the kind of things that drive affinity for the brand. So I think I just wanted to bring that perspective of, it can be a bit, it doesn't have to be all, boring. I mean, that's human beings are not together. We're crazy. So it's about connecting with that.
Right. So I think for me, and even our brand, we have three key things that we look at when you're getting influencers. Number one is affinity to the brand. Number two, emotional connection to their audiences. And number three, which is really, really like a highlight, is brand security, because you don't want to at any point put the brand you're representing in jeopardy because of an influencer's past or character. So we do a really deep insight it's called a psychographic analysis, behavioral analysis, and sentiment analysis of the influencer, where we map over 200 data points, which look at what we call the ocean model in terms of personality traits. So it's openness to experience, it's the conscientiousness of the influencer, what's his extraversion like, what's his agreeableness, and what's the neuroticism. Yeah. So being able to do that, we are able to tell someone's nature, we're able to tell what he's prone to do, and we're able to tell what makes him tick, what kind of triggers can make him do something. So we are able to accurately see and accurately tell that if you use this guy in this particular campaign and something happens in which is anticipated, or what that kind of thing, this is how he'll react. Or we're able to tell this guy by just studying his past posts and just being able to gain deeper insights in him or her has had a scandalous past. This is how he approaches his subjects. This is his subjectivity and things like that. So I think that's very important when it comes to influencer marketing and campaigns, and just ensuring brand security. Because on the other hand is, people are very discerning now. Customers are really discerning, and they really follow to see what people are talking about. And especially when it's a big influencer, the macro, the nanos, the Kenyans first, not Kenyan only, but Africa, as in the first thing they want to do when they see a public figure is hate. That's natural. It's in the Africans kind of, DNA. So you first hate, then you start aging to love the person, and that's why when something trivial happens with an influencer, you get people really reacting in a really big way. So we have to really conduct brand security before we run influencer campaigns with our influencers.
Did you really have to go there, Nelson? Really? I mean, this is how we are.
It is real. It's real. That's how it is.